Science is proving more and more that poor gut health is the leading cause of most diseases. Without a good diversity of bacteria, you don't make certain nutrients, you don't absorb food properly, and you can't modulate immune function very well. Now, we are realizing the importance of good gut health and its relationship to your mental health. There is so much that bacteria does for your health, and the best part, there is so much you can do to improve it, and that is to fix your digestive system. Today, I have the privilege to sit down with one of my mentors, the diva of digestion, Brenda Watson. Brenda is a PBS celebrity, best-selling author, lecturer, and educator over the last 30 years. And she has taken time out with us to help better understand the benefits and the importance of probiotic diversity in our lives. Welcome to the show, Brenda.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for being here today. You are one of the pioneers and leading experts when it comes to digestive health and the care of your gut. You're the person I always want to call because you know the gut for sure.
Well, thank you, Bryan. There's a good and bad to that. You know what I mean? Like I got into gut health before it was popular
That's
30
exactly
years ago.
right.
30 years. So
Amazing.
back then, when I first got into it, I was weird, right?
Voodoo, yes, voodoo.
Voodoo, weird stuff. But I got into it because I, had health challenges my whole life. Obviously, I'm from the South. I'm from North Carolina. And I don't know, Bryan, I mean, I was born, and I'll talk about this other in a minute, but when I was born in the early 50s, what that was the real antibiotic revolution. Okay. And that was when, you got the stuff every time you stubbed your toe. You know what I mean? It was just pink stuff. And so historically, my health challenges started at 2 years old. And it was from the overprescribing of antibiotics. And I went all the way through probably well into my end of my 20s. And then in about 1985, if you can imagine, I was walking into a health food store going, I got to do something different. And so back then, of course, there wasn't much, but there was in a way because they still had, I started myself juicing and doing things like that, changing my diet. And I started to understand that my problems revolved around constipation that no one ever defined or explained to me. And so that's why I ended up, by the time I was, in elementary school, they were actually hospitalizing me for migraine headaches and giving me morphine, if you can believe that. And then as I got into high school, it was chronic fatigue and on and on and on. So the point of it is I started trying to heal myself. And that's how I walked into the health food store and asked to read books, we do the gut extinctions, and I've written, I think, 9 books now. And the point is, I think, we don't look as like if I have a skin issue or if I have a migraine headache, I don't relate it to here unless I've got a really bad symptom. And I know because I talk to consumers constantly, the customers that come in your store, and if they're not having gas or bloating or IBS or something like that, they don't know eczema, or they don't know psoriasis, or they don't know arthritis or heart disease starts here. And even though they may not be symptomatic, because they don't even know what a symptom is.
Yeah.
Right? Unless it's uncomfortable to them, And then, because I never knew the definition of constipation, I never knew I was constipated. So anyway, back to the point, by the end of the 80s, early 90s, I wanted to help other people because I felt so much better, and it changed my life. And
that's right. But back then, Brenda, we didn't really have the old cliche of everything begins in the gut yet. That sort of came later. So we've never looked at all those symptoms being a gut relationship. But now times have changed. Research is proving every day that it really does begin in the gut. And so it's becoming more than just that cliche. And you're walking that talk every single day. And That's why I'm glad to have you on the show. So I have read your latest book, The Gut Extinction, which I think is an awesome read for anybody who has gut issues. Really, it's for everybody. Everybody
Yeah.
needs to read it because we all have gut issues of some type. And so you discuss a term in there called LOMD.
Mhm.
Define that for us and what that really means.
Okay, LOMD means loss of microbial diversity. And I'm going to give you guys a good visual. You have gut bacteria, if you want to do a visual on it, the amount of it is the weight of a brick, 3 to 4 pounds, inside of you every single day, all the time. Now, having said that, some people, oh, that's terrible. It's not terrible. It's a good thing because you
Yeah,
want
it is.
80% of the brick to be the good guys. So what happened is in 2000, in the early 2000s, around 3 or 4, the National Institutes of Health funded the microbiome project, which what that really means is they sent money to all the microbiologists in the different universities that wanted to study the health of good bacteria with the health of the human body. So LOMD, it took them, oh gosh, it probably took them, I started understanding it probably in 15 or 16. So what happened is, what they started seeing was when we're born, there's 2 ways we're born. We're either come through that birth canal with our mom or we're cesarean. Unfortunately, some people have to be born cesarean. Some people choose it, which is, I
Mhm.
can't even believe it. But when you do come through the birth canal of the mom, if the mom is healthy, then what happens is you're bathed, the baby's bathed in the lacto and bifidobacteria as they come through the birth canal, and within 2 days, they are colonized, their gut is, with the good bacteria. It's
Mhm.
called your microbial footprint. Now, if you're cesarean, it's unfortunate because you don't get that. And that's why it's important for every single pregnant woman to take a probiotic. Okay. So back to this. It can take, with a cesarean born child, up to 2 years to develop the microbial footprint, even if they do it all. So, what the scientists started looking at was, because, and I started doing stool testing in 95. So
Mhm.
I had 5 natural health clinics and I got right into stool testing. So I knew, I could see that as I got the stool test back from patients and clients, and that was way back in the early 90s,
Mhm.
I knew that we were losing bugs. I call them bugs, the
Yeah,
good
that's what they
bugs.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happened is Stanford, microbiologists at Stanford and some of the UCLA and some of the other universities went out, Bryan, and they said, you know what? Why are we not finding strains that have been in the human, body since the time that humans were here? Why are they gone? Why are some of those missing? And then what they did is they said, where on this planet are there people still living that have a diverse microbiome? So when I say that, folks, I mean Lactobacillus acidophilus and bifidobacteria. And there's thousands in each of those genus and species of strains. So what they did is, one of the groups they went and visited were the Hadsas, and that is a hunter-gatherer group in Africa. And they went down there. Well, these people have no IBS, no colon cancer, no hemorrhoids, no constipation. So they went down there and they studied their poo and
Mhm.
found that they had the most diverse strains of bacteria.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah. Why?
Okay,
Exactly.
right? Well, they went, well, it's got to be the Western diet. It's got to be the food. There's a combination of things. The cesarean birth is a big piece of
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
So what happened is they started, there's 4 tribes. There's one in Venezuela. There's one in Mexico. So there are 4 or 5 tribes left on the planet that do have a diverse microbiome. So here's the point. Lactobacillus acidophilus and bifidobacteria, what they found these strains do is have a lot of benefits to your overall health, whether you have heart disease, rheumatoid arthritis, eczema, go on and on and on, mercury toxicity. So what they found is that this diversity was tied to the probiotics or the good bacteria, and that's what the Gut Extinction book explains. So what happened? Why are we losing strains? And so they went back and went, well, like I said, some of it is, from, your cesarean birth, but a lot of it is just generally we're losing them because as a mother has a child and the mother has a compromised immune system, didn't take probiotics, didn't know how to eat well, then their child is even more compromised. And here's an example of that from me. My daughter, because when I had her, I knew nothing about this. I was 24 years old. And when I had her, I had no idea because my health was so compromised that she was going to be that much more compromised. So she's had health autoimmune problems also, just like me. So what LOMD means is that we used to think, and you may remember this, you used to go to the health food store and go, I need acidophilus.
That's all the only word we knew at that time. Yes.
That's right. And so we thought, oh, well, acidophilus means all the bacteria in your gut. Well, we since know that that's not true. And since we do know of all the benefits that the good bacteria does for us that we have today. So what happened is we didn't know anything about it. We thought like, okay, there's one bacteria. It's called Lactobacillus acidophilus, and it does everything. Well, we know today that's not true. So what LOMD means, go back to the brick, okay? In that brick, which is an example of what's living inside of you, and these are living organisms. And we now know, and if you read one of the chapters in the Gut Extinction book, and by the way, you can get this in their health food store, Sunflower Shoppe, for free. I mean, if you want it.
Sure can.
So what they found out was that with the loss of microbial diversity, so was going the way of the health of us in the Western world. Why is there so much more autoimmunity? Why is there so much more of these things? Well, because a strain of bacteria can have a specific health benefit. Let's take one. Makes vitamin B and K. Pretty important, right? Let's say the strains that make that in your gut are gone. What do you think is going to happen? You lack vitamin B and K. And lacking vitamin B is one of the reasons we end up with IBS and SIBO and all of these things. So what it means is that in our world over here, due to processed foods and the way we live and the stress and, all of that, we are losing the diversity strains. We're losing these strains. So what they are doing now, which is a wonderful thing, is they are, how they have seed banks. They're taking the seeds that we've lost, in our world. They're doing the same with strains. They're finding the strains in some of these, hunter-gatherer groups, and they're putting them in a freeze-dried situation. Really, I think in the Netherlands, in that area. And they're freezing them and they're trying to get them back so that maybe we can re-implant them into the human body and get more. So at Vital Planet, when I formulated my first probiotic in 1998, and I was just like everybody else. I mean, I thought, oh, okay, this is what we need. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so I was the first one to come up with the 50 billion, which was potency. And people are like, we don't need 50 billion probiotics. I'm like, you've got 3.5 pounds in there, folks. Yes, you do. So what happened is when I started seeing that the strain diversity had just as much importance to our bodies as the potency. So if you look on a bottle, or a box or whatever, when you purchase a probiotic, one number will tell you potency. And that's mostly what you see in most probiotics. However, ours will show you potency and strain diversity side by side. So LOMD means we've lost valuable strains It's invaluable to our health. And we have to come back and put these strains back in to create, think of this, the microbial footprint that we should have been born with.
That's right, Brenda. And just to clarify what I'm hearing you say is that we're shifting from just a potency type culture that where we used to be in the late 90s, as you're referring to. We're now recognizing the fact that diversity is even becoming more important. Is that correct?
Yes, we are. Absolutely. Which I didn't know 5 years ago.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't know
right.
that. But you're kind of running with
Yeah,
science. This is coming up, this is coming up, and it's a job just keeping on top of everything. But yes,
that's right.
that's exactly what to say. And the reason that the strains are so important, Bryan, is it's like a baseball team. Okay. Every strain has a certain strength and weakness.
Mhm.
Like I said, one makes vitamin B and K. One is really good at supporting immunity. One is really good at killing viruses. We've had COVID, right? I mean,
Yep,
all of them.
that's right.
So
That's right.
they're not all good at the same thing. Like we as human beings or a baseball team,
They each
we
have a
have to
talent.
work together. We take the strength from this and the weakness from that. We put it together and we have a team. And so what I've done is I've put the team back together along with potency
Mhm.
because that's important, but put a team back together. So when a person is trying to increase diversity of that 3.5 pounds of bacteria, I'm putting all the strains in there that, I mean, we're now sourcing from Italy, and we're sourcing from Czechoslovakia and other areas because we do have the 100 billion 100 strain. All we started out with the 60 billion 60 strain in our different formulas. We'll talk about that later. But
Mhm.
point is, I'm trying to put in the diversity so that we can overall affect the health of the individual because the strains like to work together. And
That's right.
even in like a baseball team, you have what's called a pinch hitter, right? I guess I'm not a baseball guy, but you have a pinch hitter, right? Because one probiotic will, they have a consciousness. They have like a radar. I call it the GPS,
Mhm.
gut protection system. And what they'll do is one guy will look and go, oh my gosh, there's like, let's take listeria, which is food poisoning. That is the most devastating thing. When a person gets listeria or food poisoning, their gut wall opens up immediately and they get leaky gut
Mhm.
immediately. So
Mhm.
what
Yep.
happens is when you put these strains together, one strain might go, oh, look what's coming out of the stomach because there was no stomach acid. Look
Yeah.
what's coming out of the stomach. Let me send this guy in because he can also, I guess you could say they can do, mimic each other's the word I'm
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Exactly. I'd like to address a few more of the causes of LOMD, though, Brenda. You already talked about the C-sections for sure.
Mm-hmm,
Maybe not breastfeeding and so forth. You
mm-hmm.
also talked about food and lifestyle. What
Right.
about medications? What's
Yep.
probably the worst offending medication you see on
I'll
the
tell
market
you.
today?
You're going to know what I'm going to say.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I have this great chart and I want you guys to get this in the store.
All right.
First, antibiotics, number
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
Second, acid blocking medication.
That's right. Exactly. The acid
Acid
blockers, and
blocking medication is killing us,
it
killing us.
is. I totally agree. We see it seems like 7 out of 10 people are on it.
You know
It's
why?
crazy.
Now it's over the counter.
Yeah, that's
I'll
right.
never forget a lecture I did many years ago. And I was saying, how many people in the audience are on, heartburn medication? Well, probably about a third of them raise their hand. And I go on with my lecture, and the woman looks at me and goes, I've been taking it for 14 years. And I went,
That's right.
you've been taking that for 14 years to kill your stomach acid? You have
Hmm.
no B12 absorption.
Yep.
Now we know it leads to osteoporosis. We know it leads
Osteoporosis.
to increase in pneumonia. I
Hmm.
mean, it's
There's
unbelievable
a
that we
reason why it says
allowed it.
take it for short term, right? I mean, even on the side of the box.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's crazy, but you're right. We're just not educated, and that's what we're trying to do is get the word out that these are the things and causes that can really create this LOMD type environment in our gut. And we need
Yeah.
to, like you're saying, is get the diversity back in there so that can help and least stopping or slowing the progression of many different diseases out there. Because from
Right.
your point of view, it's pretty much, bacteria or lack of those good bacteria can even be the first step in creating disease.
And you know what, Bryan? Here's the thing. It's so confusing. You know that on social media, nothing against social media, but I watch it fairly closely and and I see so much information
Mhm.
that's okay, not bad,
That's right.
you know, but a whole lot of information that is
Mhm.
wrong.
That's
And
very
for a
true.
person, let's say a customer that comes in your store, knows very little about it, knows maybe they have a gut problem, maybe they don't. I think that it is so hard now. I mean, it was always hard before. I think because I lectured in this industry for, for
A
30
long time.
years. My first
Mhm.
lecture on leaky gut was in 94. So
Wow.
believe me, I've been doing it a long time.
Yes, you have.
Point being that you're I want to say this from the bottom of my heart to the tips of my toes, that the health food, the real health food store,
Mhm.
is where we have educated and brought health to so many people. And
That's right.
Sunflower is a part of that because I don't want to say this in a wrong way, but you are a mom and pop or
We
whatever you
are.
want to call it, an independent retailer.
52 years.
52 years,
Yeah.
right. And so the point is that you are a source of information and education. And I believe that many times, they're listening, whatever, to social media, that they can go into an independent health food store and there's still people in there that have been there since the hippy dippy times, but there's
That's right.
also still people in there who are educated younger people. They're along the way, and you should be the source of where people get the real information on, like, why this probiotic is this way and why that one is that way, and why does this one say 60 billion 60 strains, why does that one, and the other thing that's very important, and I do believe in our industry will come up to snuff, as they say, is the fact that the labels need to read correctly. So when you have a label on a product, it gives you lactobacillus acidophilus and the strain
That's right.
instead of just the lactobacillus acidophilus or the bifidobacteria bifidum. That's very important. And
Very true.
I think the industry gets more educated in this, we'll see more proper labeling
I
because
agree,
that's
Brenda. I
important.
totally agree with that. And I
Yeah.
appreciate those comments. It's very true. It's all about education. And so, circling back around to what are some of the first signs of LOMD out there that people start to recognize within themselves?
Well, I think the first thing, I mean, if you could take the
Hmm.
universal thing I hear is gas and bloating.
Hmm.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So the LOMD starts with, okay, if you've had a gut problem for a long time and you didn't have a symptom, like or either you didn't know you were constipated or you were constipated. The other thing I see more today than I've seen in 20 years is diarrhea.
Hmm.
And now IBS is called SIBO. We'll go back to that. The
Yep.
point of it is, Bryan, the first things that you start to see is a gut symptom. Gas and bloating is number one. If they go to a doctor and do an ultrasound and they have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is 50% of the
Very common.
population now,
Very
and they're
common.
now finding children born with it.
They sure are.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you've got non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, you've got gas and bloating, constipation, GI problems, obviously, you're out of
Mhm.
balance.
Mhm.
However,
That's right.
if you have crossed over and you've turned on your autoimmune genes, which I did very early in life, let me just say, you don't turn them off,
Mm-mm.
you
No,
manage it.
that's
Okay.
right.
So then you're looking at who comes in that has a gut problem, or the first signs they've already developed the metabolic syndrome, which is the heart conditions, or they've got weight issues,
Mhm.
or they've got, the book I wrote, Skinny Gut Diet, in 2014 was way ahead of its time
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
balancing bacteria and managing weight. You've got weight issues. You've got a lot of belly fat weight. That's a big sign of LOMD.
That's
The
right.
other
Hormone
things,
imbalancing.
yeah, and then you've got your skin stuff. Even your younger girls with acne. That is a gut sign
Hmm.
automatically.
Totally
So
agree.
the first thing they're going to start seeing and noticing is, oh, well, my joints hurt, or, I've got brain fog, you know, why did I walk in this room? You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
So those are the signs that we start looking at. And I will say to the people listening or watching this, trust going in your health food store, because I want to clarify that by saying I'm not telling you not to go to a doctor. Okay. I
Yeah,
just
of
want to
course.
clarify that. But if you've been checked out, like let's say you've had a colonoscopy, let's say you've had an endoscopy, let's say you've done all the diagnostic testing that they recommend, and I also am a bit of a cheerleader for too.
Hmm.
Um,
And you
I
don't find
think the
anything.
first thing that you can see is, or they've got heartburn.
Hmm.
Big, big warning there.
Yes, it is.
And so those are the things we start seeing. Now, we've now gone and transitioned. So when I started, I never heard IBS until I believe, and you might correct me on that. It was the end of the 90s or early
I'd say early
2000s.
2000s. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd
Yeah.
never heard of irritable bowel syndrome. And
That's
then it
right.
came about, and there's no cure and blah, 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 because it's
Hmm.
not a disease. And so one of the things now is, because of testing and because we've learned more, we now know that the irritable bowel syndrome, 70%, and I just did a PBS show, so all these statistics are correct. 70% of people diagnosed with IBS have SIBO,
Wow.
small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, up here, like right
Hmm.
up underneath, and right over that liver, right at the bottom of your ribs. And I have people tell me I bloat and drink a glass of water. Now, I will say women bloat, men have gas.
Hmm.
Women don't
That's
want to
right.
have gas.
That is so true.
Yeah.
So true. So
So that is the big, that they're estimating 100 million people in this country have SIBO.
you know, if my practice is any evidence on a small scale, it seems like 10 out of 10. I mean, we all
Yeah.
have some issues to some degree. It's amazing how many people have these GI disturbances going on. So I know this may be a broad question. So, but taking IBS and SIBO and all these chronic issues that people are experiencing, where does one start? Is it as simple as just taking a probiotic, or what else can we do to really help enhance and overcome this issue?
I think for me, to be totally ethical, food is first.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I mean, if you think you're going to take a pill and eat a poor diet, you're not. You're going to
No,
get better.
not at all.
Okay. So food first. And then, yes, start with the gut. So I have a formula just did a PBS show on, called the Hope formula. And that is high fiber, omega-3 oils, probiotics, and enzymes. And that's
Perfect.
just getting ready to come out. But the point of it is you've got to start in the gut first, and that first has to start with food. And I didn't know that until, gosh, I had written books, many books, 2 or 3 books before, on gluten and all of that stuff, and until I realized I was celiac.
Hmm.
you
Wow.
know and
Wow.
I had the same rationale that a lot, even though I was a practitioner. I mean, I had 5 natural health clinics in the state of Florida in the early 90s all the way through the 90s, so I
Hmm.
practiced like
That's
you
right.
you know
That's right.
and so I thought, well, I don't need it that much. you know that's typical, right? I don't
That's
need it
right.
that much. However, I had sort of a double whammy, and I got Lyme.
Hmm.
Okay. So that really switched on my autoimmune genes. And so the Lyme triggered the celiac to where I couldn't move my hands. So
Hmm.
my fingers were sausages. And this was back in the mid 2000s.
Hmm.
And the Lyme in itself was horrific. But what people, if I can get a message across to you today, go start with your gut, regardless of whether you have a digestive symptom or not,
Mm-hmm.
because I call it the multivitamin of the gut, because you need that stability. Because there's an article, by the way, in USA Today that I'm going to pull. I read it this morning, and it was on the fact that there's the increase they're seeing in Parkinson's disease. Well, now, can you believe it? They think all these brain diseases could be coming from toxins.
Amazing,
Who would have
right?
thought, right? So anyway, point is, start with the gut, start with the probiotic. But I got to tell you, more than anything, fiber is so
Mm-hmm.
important.
That's
And
right.
one of the things I'm going to do, Bryan, is I'm redefining that fiber category. And I'm going to have a fiber for people so they can understand, I need this fiber if I have constipation. I need this fiber if I've got diarrhea. I need this fiber if I just need a prebiotic to help feed my good guys. So I'm working on all
I
of that
think
right
that's going to be great, Brenda. So many people, I mean, like you said in your book, the research is starting to show that certain fibers feed certain bacterias.
now. Right.
And now we're understanding that. I mean, you're the one that taught me about the importance of fiber way back when.
I know.
You were saying we need these 25 grams at least a day, maybe really 40 grams, I think is what you were promoting at the time.
35.
35. Okay.
You
I remember it's
almost
a lot
got it.
higher than everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I would always follow that advice and recommend it to others, because the importance of fiber is just keeps on growing. And now we're starting to understand that it's the types of fiber to help us
Right.
create this diversity we're looking for.
Right.
So another great research you're pointing out.
Exactly, Bryan, because look at it this way. Bacteria are individual. We are individual. I don't like the same foods you like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't
Yep.
either.
That's
So
right.
you can't just feed them one type of fiber. They need I think diversity is the message, but
It is.
they
It
need a
is.
diversity of food
That's right.
sources for them to multiply. So
Diversity of bacteria and diversity of those foods and fibers.
yeah,
Exactly. I
exactly. And
totally
that's
agree.
what we're learning. And that's what, I can't tell you, I feel so badly for people that have the gas and bloating. And one thing to say about that, because I really, please go in and get the gut extinction book,
Yeah.
please.
Start there.
Because,
It's a great starting point.
what's happened here is methane. That's why you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And, I think what's going to come around, Bryan, and this hasn't come around as much yet. There's an organism that was, when the planet was formed, it's in dirt, it's in the oceans, and it's called archaea. Okay. Think of IKEA, the furniture store. It's archaea. Okay. Do you know the animals that produce the most methane is like cows, right? That's why we have this, all that we do
Green
on,
movement.
on the environment. Well, archaea is the most methane producing organism on our planet. And guess what we're finding now in here? We're finding archaea. So when
Interesting.
people have this upper gut bloating gas of methane or hydrogen producing the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, two things have occurred, one or two things. The bacteria, see, when I first learned bacteria, the upper gut should be relatively sterile, other than what's just moving through. But what we know now is that when you're sleeping and you overeat at night, and this is a whole other lecture we could do one day, is talking about there's other movements besides peristalsis that the gut does. And one of them is called propulsion. So when you lay down to go to sleep at night, the reason all of us baby boomers have all the problems is we've eaten too much food and we lay flat. And the thing of it is we need 3 hours to get that food moved, because ideally you want to have a bowel movement in the morning. That's why God created us the way he did, right? We all want to get up and go to the bathroom.
Yes.
So the point is if you overeat and you've got, while you're sleeping, drip, drip, drip from that stomach and that food entering that small intestine, that's one way that methane is produced. It's called displaced bacteria. But this is the other way. You have reverse peristalsis. So the ileocecal valve, which is what separates the small and large intestine, stays open.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lay down to go to sleep, your muscle contraction, instead of doing it this way, goes backwards. It's called reverse
Interesting.
peristalsis. So what it
Wow.
does is it pushes all that, think of the bacteria that's in that colon. It pushes all that bacteria from the colon up into the upper gut, and it sits there and ferments. And
Wow.
in one of the things the gut extinctions helps you with is, we do a lot on fermented foods. I think they're wonderful. But when you're like a yeast factory in here and you're over fermenting, you've got for a period of time to kind of look at that and reduce some of that fermentation is really
Just for a
important.
while. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. So
Yeah.
this would also maybe explain the reason why some of the science is showing that it's good to take a walk after you eat, even as well, trying to get moving as opposed to sitting or, like you said, laying on your back.
Yeah. And this is the first time I've said this openly, but I did go and buy a bed that
Mm-hmm.
moves.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't have that problem, but when I had my second child, I got a hiatal hernia right here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I, talked to a GI doctor that I really trust, and he said, and my neighbor did it recently, did a hernia surgery, and I'm like, I am not doing that. No.
Mm-hmm.
So if I get under stress, what happens is it's a muscle, so it
Right.
just clamps up. And one of the things that's helped me tremendously is like acupuncture. That's
I've
helped
heard
me.
that
But
helps a lot of
anything
people.
like what you're talking, just going and walking,
Mm-hmm.
making everything go this way and not this way, because
That's
that's
right.
what's wrong with reflux and GERD, is the contents of the stomach, regardless of whether there's too little acid or too much acid, are going up into the esophagus, creating inflammation, irritation. So,
Mm-hmm.
breathing and another whole, thing we should explore at some point in time is the vagus nerve, because
Yeah,
the vagus nerve is what's controlling all of that.
that's right.
You
That's
know?
right. And there's a lot more science coming out showing that how much connection there really is between the vagus nerve and the gut. Very interesting stuff, and we'll definitely have another conversation on that. I want to definitely, just in the sake of time right now, is to go back to you starting a whole line of gut products with Vital Planet.
Yeah.
So, and helping to restore the gut and so forth. So tell me a little bit about your company and what your goals are.
Well, as you well know, I was the founder and formulator of Renew Life. And
Mm-hmm.
in 2014, I had a tragedy happen in my life, and I lost my son.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't think I'd ever work again. And I
Yeah.
kind of turned Renew Life over to someone else and they eventually sold it. And I really thought, Bryan, I would never work again.
Sure.
And
I
I
understand.
stayed home for a long time. And my husband and my son-in-law started the pet. You carry our pet formulas. We're really good with pets too, guys. But
Yes.
I have 4 dogs and love them to death. But anyway, I'm an animal lover. So what
Uh-huh.
happened is finally, and I had planned to do this strain diversity over there at the other company.
Mm-hmm.
However, what happened is about 2.5 years ago, my husband came home one day and he said, you need to go back to work. And I went, I know. He said, if you stay in this house any longer in the depression that you're in, he said, Brenda, your whole life has been a ministry.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a
That's right.
ministry. And you're
That's right.
happy when you're helping people.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what, Bryan? I pulled up my bootstraps and I got back in here and I formulated the Vital Flora 60 billion 60 strain, and then I've got a bunch of the cleanses, the fibers, and all of that coming with the Hope
Mm-hmm.
formula. I just filmed right before Thanksgiving it's called Gut Check. It's going to be coming out in March on PBS, and I'll be doing the Hope formula. And
Great.
I'm doing a lot. I'll be doing a lot on social media. So yes, I'm working again, and I don't look at it this time. I didn't look at it last time as work, but
Mm-hmm.
I will say I'm 70, so
Yeah,
I'm
but it's
not.
ministry. I agree that term's perfect for you. You have been ministering to a lot of people about how to take care of their gut. And,
Right.
and unfortunately, trauma is one of those things that help us produce LOMD, right? I mean, that
You
type of
know
thing. So
what?
you had to get out there.
You know what, Bryan? I would never in my entire life have thought because I had really that was a what you call a trauma that happened quickly. It was not
Of
so long
course.
term, and I, over the years, you lecture and go around and you talk to consumers and meet thousands and thousands of them. Never, you always say, oh, it's stress. Oh, it's stress. Oh, it's this. But I will tell you, I experienced that firsthand.
Mhm. That's
And
right.
that's one of the reasons I bought the bed, because I've got the hernia. You know what I mean? And I
Yes.
eat very lightly at night. But yes, trauma, and especially sudden trauma,
Mhm.
and PTSD is very real. So
Sure
I
is.
will tell you that with the depression and all of that I went through, you're never over it. You know what I mean? But I'm
Mhm.
walking forward now, and I'm
That's right.
walking towards, the 100 people calling on that customer service line every day. And,
That's right.
I'm trying to help them, and I'm out doing the PBS again. I've got a new book coming out called, The Hope Formula. So I'm really back, really realizing that I can have some joy in my life again, because that's one
That's
of the
right.
tragedies that no one should have to experience.
Of course it's not. And that joy also comes from all the people you're helping.
Yes.
You've always been a mentor for me in my life. I've been doing this 29 years, so I'm right behind you.
You
But
are?
I've always loved your research and information as far as what you put out, because it's helping people. And the
Right.
products that you have, I think, are top notch. Your company
Right.
I mean, no problem in recommending it, because you've always done top notch type ingredients and putting together formulas that actually work in people's gut to help them restore their gut health no matter what phase they're at. And I
Right. And I want
appreciate
to
that.
say something too that's really important. I think sometimes in looking at a probiotic, it's a very crowded market today. When I started,
Mhm.
it was nothing, but it's a very crowded market today. And sometimes I think people, we give 5 promises from Vital Planet, and one is, we guarantee potency into
Mhm.
expiration of product. This is all on the box.
Yep.
So that means on a shelf or in a refrigerator, it's 2 years. On a shelf, it's 18 months. We guarantee that when you test, if we test it, every at 2 years or 18 months, you've got what we say. We have a delayed release capsule, because
Mhm.
obviously you want the probiotic in your small intestine
That's right.
through the colon. And then we have the strain diversity, we have the potency, and those are very important things. Like our capsule is a veggie cap, but it's delayed release. And Bryan, they don't give me that. I
Mhm.
mean, they
Mhm.
cost more money. So when someone looks at ours as a couple of dollars more, sometimes I come back to them and say, yes, but do we guarantee potency at time of manufacture
Mhm.
or at expiration of product? That's
That's
really
right.
important.
It is. You pay for what you get.
We have the delayed release capsule, so all of these, and we add the 7 prebiotics in the capsule
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
the product. So you've got 7 varieties in there, and that's very important also. So I think that I feel like, when I look at it, I have to have something that I want to take myself,
That's right.
and I want to be able to guarantee a customer or a consumer that goes into a health food store that they're buying the very best,
Exactly.
and that's important to
And
me.
when your name's on it, I know it's the best, Brenda, and that's what I appreciate about you. You got a great company. I know we'll dive more into products later on about what you're really producing and the whole products, the whole plan that you have come out. But for now, I think people should go get the Gut Extinction book. I know you can get it on your website, correct? As well
Yeah,
as in our
absolutely.
store.
And here, and if you don't,
Yeah.
Bryan, call us and get
Yep.
50 or 100 shipped in there, because we
We
got them.
do. They're going to go too fast though. So in case we run out, you can definitely at least get them
Yeah, yeah,
online as
yeah.
an
You can
ebook.
get them. And
That's
here's the
right.
thing, just real quickly, because I know I'm running long. Um, I do everything in 4 color. That's
Mhm.
why. Okay, so in 2 of my books, Fiber 35, Detox Strategy, and Skinny Gut Diet, I went to a major New York publisher. Right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just words. I can't put. So I went to them and I said, no, I want to do books like this. And they went, no, it costs too much money. And I'm like, but you can't teach people without this.
Need visual learners, need pictures. That's right.
Yeah. So now you're going to see me with all the books I come out with. that are going to be for color. You could go through this book, and you know it because you have, and you could just follow the flow charts and the pictures. You wouldn't even have to read a word of it.
Make it easy. I like that.
Yeah.
Plus, we know we think in pictures anyway, so it's much easier to learn, in my opinion. But that's awesome, Brenda. Keep doing what you're doing because we need that education out there, and that's what I've always loved about you.
Well,
Thanks so much for being
Thank
here today.
you.
I'll definitely have you back on the show, and we'll do more about your amazing stuff you got coming out.
Yeah, and follow me on Instagram. It's Brenda Watson Wellness, and Facebook. And as you see the new year coming, I'm really ramping that up more with education than anything. It's just for education for the customer. I am really, my heart is with this independent retailer. That's where my heart is.
We appreciate that.
Because you guys are the ones that started all of this, and we ought to be giving you the kudos that you deserve than some of this other stuff that's out there.
Well, that's what makes us stand apart, is that we are educators like yourself, as opposed to getting at the mass store somewhere where no one can tell you about the product or what you need, or that's where we always wanted to be different. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brenda. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Healthy Approach podcast. Be sure to subscribe if you like this podcast and help us spread the word by rating and sharing with your friends and family. If you'd like to learn more about Vital Planet products, go to sunflowershoppe.com. That's shop with 2 P's and an E, or visit us at one of our 2 locations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.